imparerete a conoscere anche la signora Ortensia e i nostri piccoli corti. Non c'è nessuna persona più autorevole e rispettata sul travel online di Philip Wolf. Ha guardato l'industria crescere dai suoi inizi, dal 1994, quando ha fondato Phocuswright, e ha analizzato, anticipato e fotografato ogni tendenza del mercato online. L'anno scorso ha fatto la sua uscita dall'azienda che porta le sue iniziali e oggi è consulente e siede nei consigli di amministrazione di importanti aziende online in tutto il mondo. Nessuno quindi ha un occhio più globale di lui. Quando ho fondato BTO nel 2008, il mio sogno era quello un giorno di avere sul palco della BTO Philip Wolf. Oggi quella visione si avvera, signore e signori, Philip Wolf. You sit in the middle. Here we are finally. So, welcome to BTO.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Do you think most of the people knew that was Barry Diller and Carl Icahn?
I don't know if they know that. I think many people anyway, they have followed you also in Italy through the Phocuswright conference when it's on streaming. So
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Grazie, grazie. It's a pleasure for us. I mean, as I was saying, it was like a dream to have Philip Wolf at BTO once. First, how hard was to sell the business that bears your own name? What was the toughest part of the decision?
You know, everybody should understand, I imagine there's a few people here that want to build and sell a business one day. It's never easy to sell a business. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. We see all these stories about this startup and that startup. It's very difficult. So the fact that my initials, PCW, were in the Phocuswright name was not the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is to grow a business, create good economic performance, continually innovate so you're solving problems for your customers, and then find a buyer and transition. So in business, it's one of my most proud accomplishments. But the PCW part was, but I would say, it just reminded me of something. I think too many people put literal names in their brands. So the two kinds of words I knew never to put into Phocuswright was no travel, no tourism. Don't put those words in the brand. Everybody does that. And secondly, don't put your name, Philip, Wolf Associates, because then it gets more difficult.
Perfect. So obviously there is a life after Phocuswright, right?
Even better. 20 years later.
You seem more busy now than you were before. So you have the advantage to be in a lot of companies, to be on the boards in a lot of companies. This give you some ideas of what's happening in this world.
It's a very special, I say set of glasses that I have, because now I sit on 7 boards of directors, and I have participated in 19 different boards over the last 20 years. And currently, for example, I sit on boards of companies in India, in Russia, Germany, Brazil, and Canada. So I do get this special point of view. But we can get into trends. The amazing thing about the digital economy is that the differences that used to be so incredibly important about strategy and running your business, there's more in common today than differences.
Yeah. Right. So by be sitting there, you obviously, it's not only USA, but you are in Asia, you are in Europe, you are everywhere.
The world is my home.
What kind of market do you think will be the next big one? Everybody is talking about the brick, but some say the bricks are over.
The bricks are a little sick, but I get excited about companies more than I get excited about markets. But I will say this, since the early 90s, pre-web, e-commerce and m-commerce companies in travel looked to grow in 3 ways. One was geography. I need a new market. Let me go to Brazil. Let me go to India. Let me go to Malaysia. Let me go to Argentina. So they kept growing by finding a geographic area that was fertile, that didn't have a lot of companies, that didn't have a lot of investment. I can tell everybody here, that's over. I was just in Singapore speaking. There are 12 venture-funded Indonesian travel startups in the last year, right? Number 2 was by sector. Air, and then hotel changed the industry. I'm going to be car rental. I'm just going to focus on trains like Silver Rail. I'm going to just do buses like Red Bus in India. No, I'm going to do in-destination activities. I'm going to do translation services. And that second angle is pretty much over too. There are very few niches that nobody's invested in or tried to start a new company. So the third area that I've learned, I call trends. So when Steve Kaufer created TripAdvisor, and we say he's the godfather of user-generated reviews, it wasn't the geography and it wasn't the sector. It was this new thing called reviews that he seized upon and made a business out of. I know someone here is from Hotel Tonight. There's nothing new about selling a hotel room at the last minute, but there's something very new about a unique mobile experience to do it. So I think you need to focus mostly on trends and tools and innovation to solve a problem that's not being solved very well. That's what I've learned doing business all over the world.
You have anticipated a bit the other question I was going to make, because here in Italy we always say this, right? than when it happens in the US.
Yeah.
It will happen in 5 years in Italy. I don't think it's any more true, that one, but I mean, we are in a global space now.
Yeah, but so we have to ask ourselves, why do certain cultures launch new ideas more than others? And that happens in cultures where you're more encouraged to take risks, to put your capital at risk, and your careers at risk. So in the United States, for sure, if you start a company and you fail and you go bankrupt, it's not as bad, believe it or not. But what I love about your theme, .it and me, if I understand it correctly, is that 5-year delay you just asked about will compress when more and more Italians take responsibility for their own business's success, right?
Right.
It's much better to stop complaining about what I call the macro economy, the unemployment rate, the interest rates, what's going on in Italy. If I'm competing against you, I'm much more interested in stealing 1 point of market share from to me. And when you learn how to steal market share, your business gets stronger. And then if the macros improve, you know, your boat goes up with the tide.
Well, that idea, .it is me, came also because we have not many money left on the table here in Italy. When we talk with the hoteliers or with the travel agents, everything seems to go in an opposite direction, so in the pocket of booking.com and Expedia. And 2 years ago, we presented, I remember, a study made by the University of Bocconi with Professor Rodolfo Baggio, which might be here somewhere, which was saying that we left about 1 billion of our product internal in commission for those big players. Do you think that battle will continue for long? It's everywhere in the world. I know it's not only Italy, but it's...
I think the most dangerous part of that question is when people start to think we can't beat Expedia, we can't beat Booking.com. That's nonsense. I remember when Booking.com started. I went to high school with Jay Walker, the founder and first CEO of Priceline. I remember they were in last place. So this is just stupid thinking when you feel defeated. And Jeff Boyd, the retiring group CEO of Priceline, said a couple of weeks ago when someone asked him, why didn't Priceline or Booking.com invent a big last-minute hotel business? And he called that, I forgot what he was, something about the problems of incumbency. When you get big and fat and successful, you're more vulnerable to get picked off. So Italian companies can innovate. They need to think of things that are very specialized and very small and specific and just obsess about them. And you do that with 1,000 companies, it's amazing what can happen.
I always remember, I mean, we have done it here in the audience many times, but that one of the very first OTAs was an Italian one. Venere.
Yeah.
So,
and how did I start Phocuswright? Everyone told me it was not possible, right?
Sure.
I gave a speech in 1994 that this thing called the web was coming, and one day they would book travel online, and all the experts in the audience hated me for that. So that's why I like my phrase, strategically correct is better than politically correct.
I like
because,
that.
you know, while I'm on it, is too many people get a lot of advice, and they feel comforted because they got 28 opinions. I'd rather one good opinion than 28 bad
Advice.
opinions. And political, the word political means that you start to believe what the most amount of people say, right? In politics, if you're elected, you get the most votes, the plurality, the number. In business doesn't work that way, except from customers, right? But when you're strategizing and coming up with ideas, you know, be careful about who you ask advice from. Because in 1994, 1,000 people told me online travel would never happen. But 1 or 2 people told me they would. And you have to learn who to accept your advice from.
My next question it's really about my country,
Yes.
right? Let's say we have said before, tourism is a vital section for this country, which has the highest number of UNESCO World Heritage sites in the world. It provides 10% of our gross domestic product and 2.7 million jobs in a country where unemployment is at a record high. Nevertheless, recent study by our National Statistic Office, because when I saw this news, I thought it was a news taken from somewhere, but it's our internal news from the Istat Statistic Office, revealed that Italy's cultural heritage is underutilized and poorly promoted. How you see Italy's situation from your point of view abroad? Sometimes when you go to a psychoanalytic, you need someone from another point of view somewhere else to focus the problem that we might have.
Well, I like the video, the gentleman from Italy. Maybe some people will get mad at me, but I think there, the government is more part of the problem than part of the solution. And when you get macro issues like cultural heritage sites and how to liberate them, I think the government needs to completely change the way it manages and empower small entities all over Italy. They can still have plenty of checks and balances to preserve the cultural heritage, but we need, here's a simple example. In the old days, when you were driving on the highway and you pulled over to eat, right, they were terrible because all over the world the government ran them. And many years ago they figured out to rent the concessions to private organizations. And I think that kind of thinking is necessary, and of course, perhaps a culture that also supports more risk capital, angel capital investments, venture investments, private equity into Italian companies that are incentivized to promote this beautiful place. I mean, it's impossible to create a brand like Italy. You could spend hundreds of millions of euros and you have it for free. So it's more of a leveraging and an exploiting in a good way.
I saw a statistic a couple of days ago which said that the brand made in Italy is second only to Coca-Cola. So should do
so you
something
have the
about
brand,
that.
right?
Right.
And I think people know it. You have to be more aggressive and more willing to change.
For the next question, I'm going to call on stage our next bench bakers, former director of partner marketing at lastminute.com and former managing director of hotels.com, an experienced hospitality technology professional. I will work in hotels and hotels group, both in operations, sales, and marketing. I take this opportunity to congratulate him for what his company has won. Yahya Fetchati from Book Assist coming on stage.
Yeah. Good to see you. Hi,
Book Assist was winning for the second year in a row the world leading booking engine technology at the World Travel Award last Saturday in Doha, Qatar. Congratulations, Yahya.
Thank you very much. We're very happy with that. Thanks. Just one word on that. That's thanks to our clients. There's a lot of them here, so it's really for you as well. Great to see you, Philip, and welcome to BTO. It's really great pleasure to have you with us here. And just
One of the
before
benefits of retirement, I could never come because I was so busy with the other conference. So
Exactly.
So you've got no excuse this time, right? No more. So I mean, I've personal level, been following a lot what you've been doing over the last few years, and I could say that it's amazing, the achievement in Phocuswright. So well done. First question really relates to one of the new trends that are taking place in the marketplace, which is the sharing economy. And there's a lot of stuff happening in the travel sector in that area. And actually, one of the themes of the BTO this year is sharing economy. There will be a talk later by a company called Shareable to animate that. And it has actually a shocking title, that talk. Or the panel. It says, in the future, nobody will buy travel. So for all of us here in hotels, we got to get worried. So what's your view on that new trend? What's going to happen?
I am a big enthusiast about the sharing economy. So people know the sharing economy, collaborative consumption, and P2P, peer-to-peer, today are all the same thing. So the reason it's so fascinating is, well, number one, some people, I was just in India, they said, well, I don't think it's going to be big in India. And I said, look, everyone needs to understand they shouldn't waste any time debating whether the sharing economy is going to be big. It already is big. How do we know this? It started years ago sharing software. What's that called? Linux, open source.
Right.
Oh, some people say, I guess the sharing economy is big. Number two, we started sharing our lives. What's that called? Facebook.
Yep.
Then we started to share our creative content. YouTube. And by the way, Google is announcing that YouTube will launch YouTube audio, just no video. So we're really in phase 4 of the sharing economy, and that's about sharing assets. So if you drive to an airport and look at the long-term parking lot, and you see all those expensive automobiles that are sitting there, there's a lot of expensive fixed assets that are not used. Same thing with homes and beds and villas and apartments. Same thing with parking lots and parking spaces. So there's a site right now that's encouraging people to carpool and pay someone else to commute. And then the government regulations are really funny about the sharing economy.
Yeah.
They want to stop, but
Don't ask about Italy.
they can't stop it because they've spent all this money building parking lots adjacent to highway exits to encourage what? Carpooling. Oh, so it's okay when the government wastes your tax money and builds these parking lots, but it's not okay when an independent entrepreneur, right? There's another company that you drive your car to the airport and you park for free. They take you to the terminal.
That was
and
fantastic. I
Then
saw
they
that on
rent your
Phocuswright.
car.
Really fantastic.
Yeah.
So you come home, instead of paying to park, you get paid to park, right? And this will keep going on and on. Now you have, to compete with Uber, you have companies like Lyft, L-Y-F-T, and
Hello.
Sidecar, where you and me can drive, right? And you don't need all these regulations. So it's going to continue to explode.
We'll come back to that particular subject because I'd like to see what the implications for hotels is in relation to that. But let me just ask the next question, which comes to this. I actually read an article, you might have read it last week, about Airbnb, which is the hottest kind of kid on the block right now, right? And it looks like if they're adding 1,000 accommodation every day to their portal, to their system, and some say it's going to be the biggest hospitality brand.
Yeah.
Well, is it going to be as big as TripAdvisor for reviews, Google for search, probably Priceline and Expedia for travel? Is it the new kid on the block? Is it the new disruptive company?
It's definitely another kid on the block. Yes, in terms of room nights, Airbnb is projected to be the world's largest hotelier next year. It's important at conferences like this to mention that because we have to ask ourselves, when I first heard about Airbnb, honestly, what did I think? Did I love the idea or did I hate the idea, right? And if you were one of those that you hated the idea, you need to pause and say, I hated something that turned into the biggest hotelier in the world. What mistake did I make in terms of my thinking? What can I learn from that so that next time I go well? So I'm a big advocate in something called a mission statement where you define your business in terms of fulfilling your customer needs and not by describing what you do. So you should never use the word travel agency in your mission. You should talk about connecting travelers with great experiences. And the accommodation business has been around forever. Now there's something called alternate accommodations, which sounds ridiculous because people have been staying at inns and pubs and houses for, it was the first form of accommodation, right?
Right, yeah.
And now the oldest form is hot, and it's called alternate. So the industry is not good at labeling things.
Okay.
But yes, people will spend money to put their head on somebody else's pillow, and the variety of pillows and beds and rooms is bigger than ever.
Good. I mean, there's some implications for hotels there because there's a big number of people who would probably sleep somewhere else. So hotels need to find solutions.
I wouldn't want to own a 2 or 3 star hotel right now.
Right. Okay.
It wouldn't be my favorite thing to do right now.
No, they are disappearing here in Italy as well.
If I did, though, I don't know anybody here, I would change my business model and also listed an Airbnb and also listed an home away and make it a beautiful, quaint, old home with 6 rooms or 23 rooms, and then your business would probably get. So it's more of a strategy problem than it's not a hardware problem. So it's a marketing and positioning problem.
Okay, right. Okay, great. I'm just going to talk about the big guys, call them the big guys. Priceline.
Giancarlo, are you a big guy?
No.
Not here?
Not
In
at all.
Italy you are.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
So start probably with Priceline. Priceline, Booking.com, Kayak. We saw that Jeff Boyd passed, is now resigned, or passed at least to Darren Newson.
Yeah.
What is it that they're doing well? What is it really their thing? Because everything they seem to be doing works. Is it just paid, is it just AdWords, spending a lot of money on AdWords, or what's the?
So the Priceline Group, PCLN on NASDAQ, owns and runs 5 companies.
Right.
Priceline.com, Booking.com, which originally also had active hotels, Agoda in Thailand,
Yeah.
rentalcars.com in Manchester, UK, I was on that board, and now Kayak. None of them makes most of its money by selling airline tickets. So that's the first answer, right? If the genesis of your business is rooted in selling air, or you think you need to sell air in order for the other part of your business to work, you need to take a lesson. Priceline.com was opaque air in the United States, and now it's mostly hotel. Booking.com, accommodations, 100%. Agoda, 100% accommodations. Rental cars, 100% cars. And then you have MetaSearch, which is all advertising based. So when a new startup comes to me, or somebody's pivoting their business and they say, oh, I'm selling this and selling that, I ask them, well, have you thought about MetaSearch? Have you thought about selling ads? And they look at me, I know there's a problem. That's the biggest thing. They're run amazingly well, and my company was just sold, and the parent company gets rid of the accounting department, gets rid of the human resource department, combines the marketing department, everything. Priceline does the opposite. They let each company operate independently and be expressive. They share, but they actually promote internal competition. If you don't think it works, yesterday, Priceline's market capitalization, the value of the company, exceeded $61 billion US. That's bigger than Marriott, Hyatt, Singapore Airlines, British Airways, Carnival Cruise Line. It's the most valuable travel company in the world, including airlines and hotels. It's more than Amadeus, British Airways, Hertz, and TripAdvisor combined. That's how big it is. And they just passed yesterday Starbucks in market capitalization. So it's an amazing run. It's almost inexplicable, but I tried to give you the 2 biggest things is getting rid of air and letting companies be very competitive still inside.
Okay. We can't talk about Priceline without mentioning Expedia as well. Expedia 2003, I think.
We had a little video from Priceline just if we start.
So that's the CEO of Priceline. He's retiring.
So for those who don't know him, for those in Italy who don't know him, this is Jeff Boyd, the ex now CEO of.
But what I wanted to say there is, how many of you have heard of a company that was started by an ex-Expedia person? You know, there's a lot. Or even an ex-TripAdvisor person, or an ex-Travelocity person, or an ex-lastminute.com person. They're all over the place. Raise your hand if you're familiar with a company started by an ex-Priceline or Booking.com person. It's almost tiny. So the third part of your answer is they're serious about employee retention.
Right.
Some companies talk about employee retention, but there's only one way to measure it. How many employees stay and how many employees leave? I'm always skeptical of companies that say, we have a startup type culture here and this and that. And then I say, why is your employee turnover rate 18%? The talk means nothing.
Yeah. Right, I agree. I really agree.
One thing I want to add with the big companies, there's another big company that's not discussed enough in Italy, and that's called C-Trip. How many people know C-Trip? Not enough hands. Not enough hands. They're the largest OTA, online travel company in China. And they also trade on NASDAQ. They just secured an $800 million US megabond. You know, I think are thinking of Priceline and Expedia as the two big ones. We need to add C-Trip to that because I predict they will start acquiring companies outside of China.
Yeah, they're not really that present around Europe. That's why we didn't mention it.
I've seen another one which was interesting me, which is Hotel Urbano in Brazil.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, I saw the files, she's coming up, really coming up in the...
But you mentioned, C-Trip has no presence in Italy or Europe right now. But Booking.com's presence in China is minuscule. And Expedia's presence is limited to a company it owns called Elong. And C-Trip is 30 times larger than Elong. So it's the same thing in reverse. So I think C-Trip will be more successful penetrating the West than Expedia and Priceline will be penetrating.
Okay. Just last one on Expedia here. 2003, I think they started having some issues. But last week, I think Dara, the CEO of Expedia, said that 2014 should be fine. The purchase of Trivago and also the deal that they've done with Travelocity, which is amazing for them. But you know, do you think that actually the spin-off of TripAdvisor was a mistake? Does he kind of say, no, it is not?
A lot of people ask that. It was the most brilliant move I ever saw. Think about this. Expedia Inc. shareholders own this company, and one of the assets was TripAdvisor, right? And the market capitalization of the company at the time of the spin-off was around $6 billion, right? So every Expedia Inc. shareholder, when TripAdvisor was spun off, retained shares in Expedia Inc. and was issued shares in TripAdvisor. And now TripAdvisor's market capitalization is $12 billion, and Expedia is $8 billion. So the combined value is $20 billion. I hear travel people say, well, they shouldn't have spun it off. I mean, it's all about helping your shareholders. It was like when McDonald's created Chipotle and spun it off. So, brilliant move. Sometimes we get too insular in the travel industry and we say, oh, Expedia, the business is hurting without TripAdvisor business. They would do that deal 100 times.
And is Travelocity gone now?
Travelocity is almost gone. They did throw in the towel. It's a sad story. They were #1 for so many years.
At the beginning,
They probably will lay off 1,000 employees. They pretty much turned their business over to Expedia, and all they are now is an Uber affiliate running a brand and spending money on SEO and SEM. Personally, as you know, Travelocity is owned by Sabre. I think it was a move that Silver Lake and TPI did, the two private equity owners of Sabre did, to improve the bottom line so Sabre can go public. And then after that,
But what really went wrong? How could you be at the top of the brand in terms of travel back in 2002, 2004, and all of a sudden, is it the same thing can't happen to Priceline?
Sabre was started by American Airlines, and Travelocity was born inside Sabre.
Okay.
The two problems at Travelocity were, number one, too much air focus. Could never get it out of their blood. And number two, when Terry Jones, the founder, left, good guy, but he didn't leave a strong team behind him. And they've had a huge leadership problem for a very long time.
Okay.
And the ferocious competition around them kept growing and growing. It was probably a smart move, but make no mistake about it, Expedia won that battle.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk about this man. If I can just have the keynote. So, right, Ms. Steve Kaufer,
Yeah.
TripAdvisor. Everyone gets excited in the audience when we talk about TripAdvisor. But let's say, I've recently seen at the conference, the Phocuswright conference, the vision that Steve Kaufer has for the future, which was those slides. Those were exactly the slides that he presented there.
Yeah.
Which are GPS recognition, right? Then my personal travel guide. So the fact that everyone will have his guide. And by the way, I've seen at the Phocuswright conference a couple of good ideas to escape from rooming problem of paying rooming abroad. So there were a few ideas. The Google Glass, he said that will be a big thing. Imagine you are in front of the Mona Lisa and the Google Glass are telling you everything about that while you're seeing it. The speak the language, that was another good thing. There are a lot of apps now that let you speak any language in any part of the world. Making local connection and skip the line. Skip the line, it seems a silly thing if you see it, but I've seen a lot of apps for that. For example, booking museum before and know whatever. So that was his vision. What do you think about that? That will happen tomorrow.
Steve Kaufer, the founder and CEO of TripAdvisor, is one of the smartest business people I have ever met in my life. So it's amazing. He raised $4 million of capital. He sold his company to Expedia for $200 million and then spun it off and it's worth $12 billion. So he converted $4 million into $12 billion. A lot of people make the same mistake as hotel and accommodation, right? They thought TripAdvisor was a review site. That's how they described it. He never saw it as a review site, right? His mission, and that's why I talk about mission statements. It's always better to describe your business by the problem you solve for your customer. Don't use any words that describes. You're not allowed to do reviews in your right? And he's always been about empowering travelers to plan a better trip, right? So for a long time it was reviews. Then came price comparisons. Now he just launched the powerful API called Trip Connect, where people can actually book on TripAdvisor.com in the hotel directly. And now he's talking about all of these other things. TripAdvisor will never stop. Mobile is a huge part of their strategy. It's really simple. Take 1,000 tourists here and 1,000 tourists here. The first group of 1,000 tourists used TripAdvisor to plan their trip. The second 1,000 did not use TripAdvisor. Statistically, the people that use TripAdvisor will have better experiences. That's all he's focused on. So if you can think about it, and it could help you plan a better trip, it's good. And one of the problems in the industry is too many people focus on the transaction. And Ben was teasing me. I'm a big believer in search, shop, buy, and share. That's the holy grail of the travel distribution chain. Search, shop, buy, share. Your business needs to have a strategy for all. right? If you're just focused on the shopping, you lose your customers upstream, you understand what I'm saying? And they're planning somewhere else, and chances are the sites where they're planning one day will empower them to book and then skip you.
Sure.
Search,
Shop,
buy,
yeah.
shop, buy, share. So everyone in the audience remember that. Huh?
If you use that in your travel business, this is what I do to help searching. This is what I do to help my customers shop. This is what I do to help my customers purchase. This is what I help my customers do share after. Your business will automatically grow, I promise.
So sorry, I have to go back to that. So you don't see an issue with TripAdvisor moving to kind of transaction?
They already did.
Yeah. So, but
They-
so
they-
you don't
they
see
have-
the issue of the fact that, moving from just consumer-generated, information. I want to go to TripAdvisor because I want to see what people are saying, and now all of a sudden I have
Well,
prices with hotels.
I know you're not supposed to answer a question with a question, but why the hell are they going to TripAdvisor and reading the reviews?
Get inspired, probably, no?
Inspired to do what?
To book,
To buy.
right? But
So what,
Okay.
what are we missing here?
Okay.
If they're stimulating interest and inspiring travel, why not?
Shop one day. Okay. Just a question on Google. They have two promising projects.
You can't ask just one question about Google.
Yeah, I know.
That's it.
But I think I heard a ring there. Two projects. Google Hotel Flights, which is actually not present in Europe here, but
Google Flights.
Google
Yeah.
Flights, yeah. Flight search. And also recently Google Hotel Finder, which everybody seems to be extremely excited about that.
Yeah.
So Google also released some data recently saying that more and more people are actually shopping direct on hotel websites, which is a good news, probably one of the good news for the audience here. So what do you think about Google Hotel Finder? What's your views on it?
I think the current names of Google's travel products, Flight Search and Hotel Finder, maybe those products are not great right now, but I think too many people in the travel industry are assuming now that 2 years has passed since Google acquired ITA software. I was scared to death about Google, but whew, I'm safe right now. Boy, is that a mistake. I think the best Google has to offer in the travel industry is yet to come. And I used to ask CEOs on stage, what company keeps you awake the most at night? If I were a travel business, my first three answers would be Google, Google, and Google still.
Okay. Just one more thing. I have to say that in 2011, Forrester Research predicted that by 2016, deal websites such as Groupon will die.
What kind of websites?
Deal websites.
Deal websites.
Groupon
We
and
see
so on.
that some issues already happening right around Groupon. And is there a problem with the business model? What do you think the future of deal websites in the travel space, particularly for hotels?
So Groupon's biggest problem was Groupon. It was a management problem primarily, and they grew too fast. They were the only company that grew faster than Google in the first few years. I would encourage people not to use the word websites because some companies are mobile only. So I'll just say businesses. There's nothing wrong with deals. I've yet to meet a traveler that didn't like a good deal.
For travelers, a great deal.
So-
for businesses, it might be not necessarily a good deal.
Right, so
You know what I'm talking
I
about.
still think there's a huge opportunity for new businesses that connect travelers with suppliers to get a deal. But I think mobile is going to be the secret sauce in that because mobile empowers two things. Number one, it knows where you are, well, three things. Mobile knows where you are, who you are, which means what you like, and it's real time. And last minute, geolocated, real time, targeted pricing is what will make deals flourish. And I think that's the business model. And the Groupon thing of pre-selling the Groupons probably got a little dated,
so-
but what a great name of a business, huh? Group, coupon. Oh.
So 2016, group deal websites will be dead? Yes, no?
No, but I don't call them websites, I call them businesses. 2000, and also it came
Businesses,
from Forrester,
sorry.
so we don't worry about Forrester too much.
Okay.
But in 2016, the travel deal business model will be alive and well. It just might be different than it is today.
Okay. All right.
So another last question that I have for Google. They have invested 250 millions in Uber, which is
Yeah.
so they think there's a lot of. By the way, is the Elena from Uber in the audience? Let me see.
Yeah.
She's here. Oh, she's over there. Okay.
Yeah.
You just got 250 millions from Google. You know that. So
Yeah,
it's
it
really
was
so promising.
It was an equity investment. I think a lot of companies like Google understands the power of mobile technology intersecting with the sharing economy. Again, the sharing economy we talked about, just like with deals, Uber is a mobile-only business. Who you are, where you are, what you need, and seeing real time. So it's that, I call it that delicious intersection of mobile technology and the business that attracts Google, and then of course the driving and the technology in the cars. So very high profile investment. Kudos to Uber, but it underscores that what it's working on is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay. So we are perfectly on time. We have 5 minutes if you want to say what's the next big thing. I mean, it's the question of the question. What do you think will be the next big thing?
So I always tell companies, don't ask that question. What's the next big thing? Because what happens is, when you're a small company or a medium-sized company and you think about the next big thing, even if you figure it out, you feel paralyzed on what to do about it. So, and really, if you speak to the people at Booking.com, it was 1,000 little things every day. So to me, the next big thing is more about how are you going to change the way you run your business. If you go back to the office tomorrow or the next day and you really don't change or you don't think about pivoting, that's a bad thing. You have to have the courage. I love the title of the book, Stories. You have to have the courage to make some changes. And what I would do is think a little bit more about your customers and the next 10% of new customers. What do they need? What are you doing about fulfilling those needs? And how do you need to change your business? Do I have the right people? Do I have the right technology? It's really bad when you're sitting around a room and someone makes a suggestion and then a vice president or the CEO says, oh, we're not a technology company, we're a XYZ company. That's very dangerous thinking. You should never describe yourself like only about what am I doing for my customers, and you might have to get rid of 1/3 of your employees and replace them with different blood. And if you're not willing to do that, in this economy, you're going to have trouble. If you are willing to do those things, the next big thing will be you, or .it and me, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Philip. Really, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Philip Wolf.
Thanks very much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
We will see Philip back tomorrow for a surprise. Then I'll leave you. Thank you, Yahya. It was a wonderful interview. Then I'll leave you for. We're nearly ready, yes? Move the chairs. Muovete le sedie. Ricomincio a parlare in italiano, mi ci vuole un po'. Un minuto e parte Ortensia, ci introduce al prossimo panel. Parliamo di distribuzione con Richard Wigman. Come stai? Grazie. Grazie. How was? Benvenuta. Figurati, piacere. fare questa cosa sulla... Io sono fermo qua. Bene, grazie. Siamo tutti pronti?
Quanti salgono adesso sul palco?
Ora è solo lui. Solo lui e il keynote. Devono mettere il podio, mi sa,
Ma lei vuole dopo?
Chi?
Ma c'è una ragazza può salire, un amore?
Dopo sale. Dopo, quando ci sono le
Quindi
domande.
finiamo?
Sì, ma dopo, senza fretta. Escaurice, Ok. So, I'm gonna call Richard on stage after the video presentation, then